Who the hell are you?
You know. You all know exactly who I am. Now, say my name.
Hey, Mr. White.
I did not realize that was Mr. White back there.
Mr. White? What?
What you doing, Mr. White?
Mr. White? Okay, the mayor said he will meet with you.
How you doing today, Mr. Sexton?
Mr. White.
Mr. White? Mr. White.
You're the man, baby, right?
Damn right.
Yeah, Mr. White.
America first, motherfuckers.
What's up, America? It's your favorite Monday morning quarterback, Mr. White. Today, we're going to check out 31-year-old Marine veteran Anthony Johnson Jr.'s story at the Tarrant County Jail. I did see that Harvey did this story, but I got to give a shout out to RC from the Big Apple. He sent this to me. Let's jump right into it.
I'm Chief Deputy Jennifer Gabbert with Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming today and for your patience as this investigation has progressed. We are going to have statements from Sheriff Wayborn and from Regional Director Jeremy Sherrod with DPS, and we're going to show you a video and we'll take questions at the end. Sheriff Wayborn.
Thank you. Well, once again, thank you for being here. I want to just bring you up to date. The last time that we gathered here and talked about this, there was a couple of promises that were made and they were kept. One, just a little bit ago, the DA's office showed the family the tape that you will see. And that was one of the promises made. And we have got that done. And also, as the Rangers took the lead, we did not want to interfere with that investigation until they have finished all interviews. That happened yesterday morning when those interviews were complete. Early on in the investigation, just a few days after the incident, we realized that there might be some issues with what we were seeing on video. And when we saw that, we immediately took action and suspended 2 of our team members. But we also, in those cases, do never want to rush an investigation. We wanted to substantiate what we had seen to make sure. That substantiation took place yesterday morning at 9:45 or 10 o'clock when that last interview was done. Then we had all of our facts and we were able to take action. At that time that action was taken is that we terminated 2 people from the agency. And you will see on video here in a little bit, that why that action was. We wanted to be transparent as we possibly could, but we also wanted to protect the investigation. When investigations are going on, especially like this, law enforcement takes serious use of force when people are seriously injured or possibly died. We take it very serious. But those traumatic situations, time after time that they happen, is almost like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle blown into air, and somebody, mostly a skillful investigator, has got to pull those pieces back and put them together. Because what you see at an angle of a camera is not necessarily so until you can confirm it. And those things is what was being done over the last couple of weeks. And because of that, the 2 team members that were terminated was one Officer Marino, Rafael Marino, and he was using a technique that, number 1, he was not trained to do, and number 2, that we do not tolerate nor do we want done. The second one was Lieutenant Joe Garcia. Lieutenant Garcia was terminated on the basis that not only was he there, he was in charge and he was allowing this to occur. He also did not respond to the urgency of the situation. He was not urgent in carrying out his duties, and that had a detrimental effect. Sorry, lost my way there for just a second. So in a continuous effort to be transparent, we are here today. Promises made early on. Family to see the video before it was released. 2, is the investigation protected up through the interview as far as we were concerned. We did both of those things and we stand here before you about to release it. I want to reiterate is that, as I said before, if somebody is criminally wrong, just like Director Sherrod said, they're going to be held accountable. If they were done something administratively wrong, they were going to be held accountable. 2 individuals that we terminated were being held accountable because they violated the policy and it was below the standards of Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. And that would have been under any use of force circumstances where they displayed that. We are about to set up this, and once again, is that this video is a little over 5 minutes long. And one of the things I want you to notice is that this is a routine shakedown of jails. We're required to do that by jail standards, number one. And number two is we always want to prevent things that are smuggled into the jail, because that often happens or attempts to be happening. So we were looking for contraband and other things that are not supposed to be in there. That was the mission that morning. And in the cell, where he was the only one there, where Mr. Johnson was, we did recover 2 pieces of contraband. There was a homemade shank, and there was also a razor that was not supposed to be there. So what you will see, if I can put some things in context before we play it, is that you will see that we're doing that. You'll see the bottom doors open in the pod. You will see things over to the right. There will be a lot of moving around. Medical is present on the bottom floor, and he is on the 2nd floor. And they go to his cell, they open the door, and tell him to come out. He steps back into his cell, not wanting to come out, but he does put on a jumper. And then he comes forward, and he kind of lunges at an officer and made a statement of some sort. Another officer saw this, believed it to be a threat, and got him and tried to pull him into that area on the tier. And then the fight began. And I say fight, it was a long fight.
What Wilford Brumley is saying is that it wasn't our fault, but we might have been at fault, and maybe we were at fault, so we fired some people. It wasn't a long fight, but the video's only 5 minutes, so I don't know. Maybe he's comparing it to like Mike Tyson fights. It was a long fight because it lasted more than a couple of seconds. I don't know. Let's get back to it.
And you will see it. And you will see multiple officers attempting to control him without success. In fact, the officers testified that he had superhuman strength. And you'll see officers moving around. Then you will see him break away from them and grab a hold of a rail. He's on the 2nd tier. One of the fear is he going to jump over? Is he going to push somebody else over? It was a very dangerous situation. He was pepper sprayed because nothing else was working, but it seemed to have no effect. And they finally wrestled Mr. Johnson off of that rail and onto the ground. And he was finally successfully handcuffed after about 2 or 3 minutes of fighting. And then Lieutenant Garcia took over and gave some commands. And some of those commands was hold him here until we get leg irons. You will hear that. And that is when Officer Marino thought it was appropriate to put his knee in his back. Now, Officer Marino was grabbed a hold of the rail. He was on his toes so that he tried not to put all of his weight on it. After that, a little bit of portion is that when he stood up after about 90 seconds, is that Mr. Johnson was non-responsive. I'm not here to say he was dead, but I'm saying that he was non-responsive at that point. He was moved downstairs and into a chair, a security chair, and over to medical, where they started CPR after that. And that part is not in there because we don't put non-responsive people on film. So that's the setup, and that's where we're at. So let's watch the film, and then we will try to answer the questions as best we can.
The sheriff is very happy with himself. He thinks justice has been served. The 2 people that he is very blatantly throwing under the bus here have been fired. It was definitely their fault, and it was an isolated incident. So as long we got rid of them people, so we're good. The big bald guy is one of the officers. The other officer, the lieutenant, is the guy behind the camera that comes up there after they've got him on the ground. All right, so I'm going to give you all a voiceover. Love the strategically placed spotlight that's right on the screen. Way to go, Sheriff's Office. That's a great way to make sure we see that picture, is put a spotlight right on the projector screen. Geniuses. Red arrow, that's Johnson's cell. Looked like he was going to walk out. I don't know why they said he stepped back. Now he's stepping back. Looked like he was going to just walk out of his cell, though. I don't know. It's really hard to tell on this picture. We will see this again without the strategically placed light, I believe, here in a little bit. But this is the one they showed everybody in this meeting and sent to all their inboxes and that stuff. I do think it's funny the sheriff said it was a long fight, and then it was just 2 minutes. So I don't know. I guess the sheriff's idea of a long fight is completely different from, I would say, most people's. You know, again, this guy's a Marine. You know, it's Memorial Day. Keep his family in your thoughts and prayers. So remember that the big bald guy, when we get the other camera, you really can't tell here who's who. You just see a bunch of shadows. At least that's what I see. But here in just a second, we're going to get some better audio. We're going to get some audio, period. And then the person behind the camera is the lieutenant. The big bald guy is the other officer that was fired with him. And there's been some updates since all this has happened. It will be included here in a little bit. But let's see if we're ready to get some audio back. Anytime now. Oh my goodness, this takes forever. All right, I'll be back, guys. So there on the bottom right should be the lieutenant and the other officer who ultimately were fired for this altercation.
Upstairs. Good. Camera screen's on? Yeah, leg iron. Moody, come on. Leave him there till we get leg irons. Leave him there till we get leg irons.
I'm sorry. In my mind, that guy is not on his toes. It looked like he put all his weight down on that man's back. But, you know, the sheriff's got to say what he's got to say, I guess. I don't believe that was him on his toes and he's keeping most of his weight off of him. He's got his weight squarely on that man's back. After we just heard him say he can't breathe. But anyways, I'm not going to get into that. Let's get back to the video.
I'm not sure.
How you don't feel a man stop breathing underneath you, I don't know. I've never done it, but apparently you don't feel when somebody stops breathing underneath you. I'm not going to show any more of this part of the video. We'll see some more of this here in a little bit. Let's jump back to the sheriff trying the cop's plane.
The lieutenant has the iPhone. He's behind the iPhone. You could hear, you know, get a housing, get this, get that. That was him. The other officer, if you remember, was the guy that knelt down on his back, is Rafael Moreno, who's been with us for 9 years. Joe Garcia has been with us for 24. Does that help? Yeah. Does that put it in connotation? And by the way, and I forgot to say this, forgive me, is that we've arranged to send a link to all of you folks, so you'll have this video.
And just to be clear, and you did clarify who Officer Moreno was, but the technique that he used, can you specify
Sure.
what that was that we saw on the video that's banned?
Is that we train people, and have trained for a long time, believe it or not, for years, is that you're arresting somebody, you're fighting them. It's okay to put a knee in the back until you get them restrained. Then what you do after that is immediately put them in the recovery position. Immediately. And that didn't happen, and that was on Lieutenant Garcia. He should have done that. They never should have kept him supine. They should have got him up and got his legs forward and controlled it. He was still kicking on the ground. The officer said he was still kicking him. So he was still going. But you get him up, get him off that chest, and that's what he should have done. So once he's restrained, the knee should have never went on the back.
Am I correct in hearing him say, "I can't breathe"? Is
Yes.
that what we heard correctly? Okay.
Is there a cause of death yet?
Thank you for bringing that up. The medical examiner, and that's one of those pieces, has not ruled or determined any cause of death. That's yet to be done, and that's in the criminal side of things. I was looking at policy side of things.
Sheriff Whitmore, between the two terminated employees, there's over 30 years of experience.
Yes, sir, there is.
There's a training problem?
Well, I'm not prepared to say that. But listen to this, is that I'm for all the training we can get. And I am for defensive tactics. I'm for reviewing those things. But even in this situation, folks knew that that's not what they were supposed to do.
Sheriff, you said
Sure.
that technique wasn't...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You described him as having superhuman strength.
Yes, sir.
Do you think he was on something?
Well, I think that is, listen, in the old days that would have been called classical excited delirium. That term is not used anymore. But in my experience, people, and I'm not saying he is because that toxicology is not bad, but he was also diagnosed schizophrenia. Remember, we had a mental health issue, and we need to find out where that came from.
So they had a schizophrenic Marine in general population. They show up at his door. I don't know, it looked like, good handful of officers show up at his door, even though he's in jail, and then, it's his door to his cell. I don't know. It's pretty sad, though. This sheriff can't stop seesawing back and forth. First it was a long fight, then the whole video is only 5 minutes. Well, first the whole video is only 5 minutes. Then it was a long fight. Then it was only 2 minutes of a fight. Then he's laying all the blame on these guys, all the blame on these two, the lieutenant and the guy who was on his back. That's all he's done this whole press conference so far, is just laid it on them. It's their fault, or at least that's what seems to be implied, is that it's their fault. They were fired because they disobeyed the policies and rules regarding restraining a prisoner. But let's skip ahead and see what happened the very following week. The same week as it happens, the day before the family put Anthony Johnson Jr. in the ground.
It was a long fight.
Right now at 10 o'clock, the Tarrant County Sheriff taking us moment by moment through the death of an incarcerated man, a death he tells us should have never happened. I'm Doug Dunbar. Good evening. Welcome in. It's a CBS News Texas exclusive tonight. Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn also, as you see here, opens up the doors of the Tarrant County Jail for all of us to see tonight. And this is the same jail at the center of so much controversy in recent weeks, which all came to a head with the death of Anthony Johnson Jr. So, second tier, dead center, that's the shakedown of the cell.
Yeah.
Right. So walk me through what you're seeing as far as how your officers are handling everything.
Well, they're talking to him. They're talking about, hey, we need to go down there. He's not wanting to go. You can tell that the struggle started. And pay close attention here, because as that struggle started, is that those 3 or 4 officers cannot handle him. And you see him pushed back and knocked out of the way there. The officers described him having this superhuman strength, and they could not control him. They could not control him.
The moment the group of officers finally do gain control is when Officer Rafael Moreno placed his knee on Anthony Johnson's back. Within seconds, he was handcuffed. After that is where Wayburn says it all went wrong.
If they have to, when you take somebody to the ground, they can put a knee on the back until they get this person cuffed. And when he's cuffed, they're to stand up, and that's it.
So the second the cuffs go on, the pressure is released.
Should be released.
That's your protocol.
Yes.
Okay. And clearly in this case,
yes,
that did not happen.
Right. And if you went to our academy today, that's exactly how they had trained you.
Moreno and Lieutenant Joel Garcia were initially fired, but both men have since been reinstated and are now on administrative leave.
Paid administrative leave, I'm sure.
A development I addressed with the sheriff late this afternoon. When we last spoke in this very same office, you told me that you felt that the people who should be held accountable in what happened were held accountable.
Absolutely.
You still feel the same way?
I absolutely feel the same way. I feel no different than I did.
In response to the jailer's reinstatement, the Johnson family released a statement saying in part, quote, "A glimpse of justice came when Moreno and Lieutenant Garcia were terminated, although that really was not enough. To learn that those jailers who clearly were in the wrong, along with others, have been reinstated the day before the family lays Anthony to rest feels like a major step backwards."
So the sheriff feels like that's justice. First they were suspended for a few days, then they got vacation. You know, they were told they were fired, but then they get rehired, and now they're on administrative leave. And again, pretty sure it's probably paid administrative leave, but that's justice to the sheriff.
In this day and age, we got this young jailer over here, and we'd like for him to be a degreed psychologist, have a medical degree, and also a social work degree, and be a 10th degree black belt, along with just knowing a little bit about the law. So we expect a lot of them out of them, and we do not, we don't have enough training. That's as simple as I can say it is I want more training for them, and it's, you know, what can we afford with the staffing we got.
Johnson's family says the 31-year-old was in a mental health crisis when he died. Wayborn and Eckert say Johnson entered the jail relatively healthy.
He was able to communicate. He talked to all my officers, answered all their questions, admitted he was schizophrenic, okay? But he was cleared for general population due to his behavior and the fact that he wasn't having an episode at that time.
And when you say due to his behavior, for clarity, he was fine.
He was
technically
acting just like you and I are right now.
Okay, so there was no need for this kind of sign that identifies him as violent, MHMR.
He would have never been housed in general population. If that was the case, he would have been in a cell like this.
But his words likely mean little to the Johnson family and other critics.
Does that all I got for y'all? Let me know what you think about this story in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay free, America. Out.